very long ago, I delivered my memoirs, which I've been working on for some time, to my publisher. He gave a huge sigh. He said, well, of course it's all right as far as it goes, but it does need some additions. It needs a lot more celebrity, a lot of royalty, and, of course, a lot more sex. So I said, well, I think I could probably provide you with 2 of those. But I'm not going to. I have no intention of doing so. And it's very likely my memoirs will never be published. While I was in the process of writing them, it occurred to me how much easier it is to write fiction than non-fiction. I don't enjoy research, and I'm very bad at it. And sometimes when I'm forced to slip in just a little fact into a novel, I can't be bothered to check it, and I get it wrong. For instance, I wrote a book that was set in Scotland, and to my horror, it appeared that I'd put Inverness on the wrong side. But nobody seemed to mind. I didn't get a single letter of complaint. Then I wrote a book about a string quartet, so I thought I'd better be careful here with my majors and my minors, knowing that musical people are a bit sensitive in those sort of areas. However, I slipped up on a major, on a sharp and a flat. Did I get furious letters in decisions? Very scary matter. But then when it came to 9 girls, I thought, well, this time, since I know nothing about them whatsoever, I just like the idea of them, I'd better do something. So I did. I researched. I did 1 whole day in the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, reading a magazine called The Land Girl, which is the Land Girls used to read in 1940, to learn something. Well, I did learn something. I learned about dagging, don't ask me what that is, about ratting, and the fact that the King and Queen were going to give a cocktail party for Land Girls in 1942 in Buckingham Palace. The rest I made up. I did, in fact, know about the rotation of crops and something to do with milking, because I've been brought up in the country. To me, the joy of writing novels, plays, stories, is that you can make it all up. No, I don't base my characters on real people, as many people suppose. I wait for them to appear as I sit down at my desk or whatever. But I do admit I sometimes steal a line from real life, if it appeals to me, and I think it will fit in well. One day I was in a pub in Dorset, sitting next to an old lady in a fox fur who had her companion with her, and she nudged her and said, "No, once you've had your stomach out, you've nothing to fall back on." I thought I couldn't have made that up. I don't invent places because there is so much to describe that I already know. And despite, though, being such a choice, I keep finding myself going back almost every book to somewhere in Norfolk. It's a bit like Corot in the Red Hat, appears in all his pictures, as you know. I've been going to Norfolk in real life for 60 years, and I still haven't perfected descriptions of its skies and infinite distances. But I like to keep trying. And I have become something of a good fictional estate agent. There's a cottage on the Norfolk coast, which I thought would be perfect for an old painter in one of my recent books, Invitation for Married Life. But now, Bernard from Colouring In lives there. My houses seem to get passed from character to character, book to book, and I enjoy redecorating them. I find myself mentioning very little about food, which has little interest for me, and anyway, I can't think what to give my characters to eat any more than I can think what to give my friends for lunch. I also enjoy choosing clothes for my characters, and I'm a bit careful here, because imagine, say you're a Jaeger lady, you wouldn't enjoy so much reading a lot of characters who shot a top shot. So I'm quite careful about that. One of the many pleasures of writing fiction is constant coming and going from your characters' minds. And in coming in, I've made this into a kind of formalised pattern. So you go in turn from one character's thoughts, hopes, fears, opinions, whatever, and then see the same scene through the eyes of another one. You see not just how different they are, but how much they hide, especially about each other, just like in real life. This method means there's no room for the author's independent voice, because you can't just go winging off into a description of something because you want it. It has to come through a character. So the margins are quite narrow, the discipline is essential. Whether or not this particular form has worked in colouring in, I don't know, but I like giving it a try. Some years ago, I always read that fascinating magazine, Paris Reviews, a collection of very long interviews of writers who explain how they worked and how the inspiration came. I'm always intrigued about how other novelists and writers do it, and love listening. My own way is pretty undisciplined. An idea comes to mind. How? Why? Where? I don't know, I have no idea. A title is next. When I was 6, I wrote my first book of short stories. I simply wrote a list of titles and then filled in the stories. Now I have to admit, my method has not changed. It's the only way I can do it. Then come the names of characters. Quite often I've noticed they happen to be names, but my husband hasn't wanted us to name any of our children. The first sentence has probably been hanging in my mind for weeks, months. So all I have to do then is to wait and see what the first paragraph is going to be hanging on to the first sentence. Then I start writing. I do 3 or 4 hours every morning. When I was younger, I did the evenings as well, not right after that now. And what I don't do is anything that people are taught in creative writing classes. I certainly don't work everything out and then write God knows how many drafts. I'd be so bored doing that. I'd never actually write a book. Of course I'd be happy to change things if a wise editor suggested that would be a good idea, but I would never be willing to put in things that I don't agree with for commercial reasons. I think there's a strange mystery of writing that keeps me at it, constant urge to try to do better, find a better, more economic way of saying something, the determination to avoid cliches, and to incorporate at least a bit of humour. I love the challenges, but have to admit, being an oldie writer is not the same as being a newly hatched one. I had such luck with my first novel, Nowhere Girl. Extraordinary promotion, and then Rex Harrison rang up from America and said, could he buy the film rights? He didn't actually make the film, because he wanted Shirley MacLaine to play a young, nubile English girl, a heroine in it. And she felt that that wasn't her, and I have to say I felt that too, and so she backed out. However, I was able to buy a Wiltshire cottage in which to write for several years. It's not like that now. I'm old hat, though I am extremely grateful to the French, who have been copiously buying my books for the last 12 years. I have no idea why. They're great readers, the French. At a signing, they buy 5 books, not 1, I think. And I discovered that if they ask questions, and if you answer them in French, they buy a lot more. I'm often asked why I don't retire. After all, people say, writing isn't a job. But of course it is. A job which I personally hope never to retire from, even when I find the perfect, elusive adjective for my Norfolk scholars.